CEO, tired of fake, well-mannered girls, but love this simple girl, eating street food at first sight. You ever notice how some people seem to have it all figured out, but deep down, they're just as lost as the rest of us? That's exactly where our story begins, with a man who has everything money can buy, yet feels like something is missing. Meet Ryan Carter, the CEO of one of the most successful tech companies in the city. On paper, he's living the dream. Luxury cars, penthouse views, and an endless stream of well-mannered women vying for his attention. But beneath the polished exterior lies a man exhausted by superficiality. He's tired of fake smiles, rehearsed conversations, and relationships that feel more like business deals than genuine connections. Little does he know, his life is about to take an unexpected turn, one that starts with a plate of street food and a girl who couldn't care less about his net worth. It was a Friday evening, and Ryan had just wrapped up another long day at work. The city buzzed around him, alive with energy, but he felt disconnected from it all. As he walked through the crowded streets, dodging tourists snapping photos and locals rushing home, something caught his eye. A small food cart tucked away, on a quiet corner. The aroma of sizzling spices wafted through the air, pulling him closer despite himself. Normally, he wouldn't be caught dead eating street food. Appearances mattered too much in his world. But tonight, something was different. Maybe it was the weight of the day pressing down on him. Or maybe it was the way the neon lights reflected off the pavement, casting everything in a soft glow. Whatever it was, he decided to throw caution to the wind and grab a bite. That's when she appeared. Or rather, she was already there, sitting cross-legged on a nearby bench, happily munching on what looked like the best dang grilled corn anyone had ever seen. Her name was Mia. Though Ryan didn't know that yet, she wore simple clothes, her hair tied back in a messy bun, and there wasn't a trace of makeup on her face. Yet, she radiated this effortless charm that made her stand out in a sea of tailored suits and designer bags. There was no pretense about her, no attempt to impress anyone. She laughed openly at something on her phone, completely unaware of the world around her, or the fact that Ryan couldn't tear his eyes away. Ryan hesitated before approaching the cart, torn between curiosity and caution. What would someone like him even say to someone like her? He imagined the headlines if anyone saw him talking to a girl eating street food alone. Not exactly the image his PR team worked so hard to maintain. Still, there was something magnetic about her, something real that drew him in against his better judgment. When she finally glanced up and noticed him staring, their eyes met for a brief moment. It wasn't flirtatious or awkward. It was honest, raw, and oddly comforting. For the first time in years, Ryan felt seen, not as the billionaire CEO, but as a person. The vendor handed him his order, a piping hot sandwich stuffed with flavorful ingredients, and he took a seat a few feet away from her, pretending to scroll through emails while sneaking glances in her direction. Every now and then, she'd wipe her hands on a napkin and smile at passers-by, completely unbothered by the chaos of the city. Ryan found himself wondering what her story was. Did she live nearby? Was she a student, an artist, or maybe someone who thrived on adventure? He wanted to ask, but fear held him back. After all, what could someone like her possibly see in someone like him? As fate would have it, the universe had other plans. A sudden rainstorm rolled in without warning, sending everyone scrambling for cover. People dashed into nearby shops or pulled out umbrellas, but Mia simply grabbed her bag and jogged toward the nearest awning, laughing as droplets soaked her sleeves. Ryan followed instinctively, finding himself standing beside her under the narrow shelter. Crazy weather, she said casually, shaking water off her hands. Her voice was warm and inviting, breaking through the tension like sunlight after a storm. Yeah, Ryan replied, surprised by how nervous he suddenly felt. Guess I picked the wrong night to try street food for the first time. Mia raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. First time. Wow, you must really trust your stomach. They both laughed. And for the first time in ages, Ryan felt a genuine connection with another human being. She didn't know who he was, didn't care about his title or bank account, and somehow, that made her all the more intriguing. Over the next few minutes, they talked about nothing and everything. The best street food spots in the city, their favorite books, and how annoying it was when people walked too slowly on sidewalks. It was such a refreshing change from the calculated conversations he usually endured at fancy dinners and charity galas. But just as things were starting to feel comfortable, reality came crashing back. Ryan's phone buzzed incessantly in his pocket, reminding him of the responsibilities waiting for him back at the office. Reluctantly, he excused himself, promising to catch her again sometime. Sure, Mia said with a shrug, though her tone suggested she didn't expect it to happen. And why should she? To her, he was just another stranger passing through her day. But to Ryan, she was something else entirely. Someone who reminded him of what it meant to be human. As he walked away, the rain still drizzling around him, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that he'd stumbled onto something rare and precious. He wanted to see her again, to learn more about the girl who ate street food with such joy and lived her life unapologetically. But how could he make that happen without scaring her off or complicating things further? The questions swirled in his mind, leaving him restless and unsure. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to him, Mia sat back down on the bench, finishing the last bites of her meal. She thought briefly about the handsome stranger who'd shared her rainy night refuge, but shrugged it off as nothing more than a fleeting encounter. Little did either of them know, their paths were destined to cross again, and when they did, it would set off a chain of events neither of them could have predicted. Would Ryan find the courage to step outside his carefully constructed world? Could Mia look past the glitz and glamour to see the man beneath the suit? And perhaps most importantly, could two people from such different worlds find common ground in a city that thrives on division? The answers remained hidden, shrouded in the uncertainty of what lay ahead. One thing was certain though, this chance meeting had planted a seed, and only time would tell whether it would bloom into something beautiful or wither away like so many other dreams in the bustling metropolis. The days that followed were a blur for Ryan. He found himself replaying their brief encounter over and over in his mind, analyzing every word she'd said, every laugh she'd shared. It wasn't just her simplicity or the way she seemed so comfortable in her own skin. It was how she made him feel. For years, he had built walls around himself, convinced that vulnerability was a weakness only amateurs indulged in. But Mia didn't care about his walls. She hadn't even noticed them. She saw him as he was, a man trying to make sense of life, just like everyone else. Meanwhile, Mia went about her routine as usual. She worked part-time at a cozy little bookstore downtown, spent her evenings sketching scenes from the city, and treated herself to street food whenever the craving hit. To her, the rainy night stranger was already fading into the background of her memory, another face in the crowd, but deep down, something lingered, a faint curiosity about the man who seemed both out of place and oddly familiar. Still, she brushed it off, focusing instead on the art project she'd been working on. A series of illustrations capturing the everyday moments of people living authentic lives. Little did she know, one particular illustration would soon take center stage in ways she never imagined. Back at his penthouse, Ryan wrestled with an internal conflict. On one hand, he wanted to track Mia down, to find some excuse to bump into her again. But on the other hand, fear held him back. What if she rejected him? What if she saw through the polished exterior and realized he wasn't nearly as put together as he pretended to be? His assistant, Claire, noticed the change in him almost immediately. "You've been distracted all week," she remarked during their morning meeting. "Is everything okay?" Ryan hesitated before responding, unsure how much to reveal. "I met someone," he admitted finally, surprising even himself. Claire raised an eyebrow but said nothing, sensing this was uncharted territory for her usually guarded boss. As fate would have it, their paths crossed again sooner than either expected. Ryan decided to visit the bookstore where Mia worked, partly because he genuinely loved reading, and partly because he hoped, maybe foolishly, that he might run into her. When he walked in, the smell of old books and fresh coffee enveloped him, creating an atmosphere worlds apart from the sterile boardrooms he was used to. And then, there she was, standing behind the counter, flipping through a novel, while humming softly under her breath. Her eyes lit up when she spotted him, though, whether out of recognition or politeness, he couldn't tell. "Hey, stranger," she greeted him with a smile. "Didn't think I'd see you here." Ryan chuckled nervously, feeling more exposed than he ever had in a business meeting. "I could say the same about you," he replied. "Do you work here?" She nodded, explaining how much she loved being surrounded by stories and creativity. They talked for what felt like hours, discussing favorite authors, childhood memories tied to certain books, and the magic of getting lost in another world. By the time Ryan left, clutching a copy of The Alchemist she'd recommended, he knew he was in trouble. This wasn't just a passing crush. It was something deeper, something real. But reality has a way of intruding on even the most perfect moments. Back at the office, tensions were mounting. A major deal Ryan had been negotiating for months was falling apart, thanks to a rival company determined to sabotage him. Worse still, rumors began circulating about his sudden interest in a regular girl, courtesy of nosy paparazzi who had snapped photos of him leaving the bookstore. The media frenzy spiraled quickly, painting Mia as a gold digger and Ryan as a reckless fool, throwing away years of hard-earned success. Neither of them deserved the scrutiny, yet they became unwilling players in a game neither fully understood. Mia, oblivious to the chaos brewing online, stumbled upon the headlines, accidentally, while browsing social media during her lunch break. At first, she thought it was some kind of joke. A billionaire CEO linked romantically to a nobody like her. Ridiculous. But as she scrolled further, the truth sank in. Photos of her and Ryan outside the bookstore. Grainy shots of her eating. Street food. Captions questioning her motives. It was overwhelming. Hurt and confused, she deleted the app and called her best friend Sarah for advice. "What do I do?" she asked, her voice trembling. Sarah listened patiently before offering words of wisdom. "Be honest with yourself. Do you like him for who he is, not what he represents?" Ryan, meanwhile, faced pressure from all sides. His board members demanded explanations. His PR team scrambled to control the narrative, and his family worried about the impact on the family name. Yet, amidst the chaos, one thing remained clear. He couldn't let Mia slip away without fighting for her. That evening, he showed up at her apartment building, drenched from another unexpected rainstorm. She answered the door cautiously, unsure what to expect. "I'm sorry," he blurted out before she could say anything. "For everything. For dragging you into this mess. For not protecting you better." Mia cut him off, her expression softening. "It's not your fault," she said quietly. "But why are you really here, Ryan? Is this about proving something to yourself, or is it about us?" The question hung heavy in the air, forcing him to confront the truth he'd been avoiding. He took a step closer, his voice steady, despite the storm raging inside him. "It's about us, about wanting to know if we can build something real, despite all the noise. If you'll give me a chance." The moment stretched between them, fragile and uncertain. Just as Mia opened her mouth to respond, a loud knock echoed from downstairs. It was reporters, shouting questions and snapping photos through the lobby doors. Panic surged in her chest. But Ryan stepped forward, shielding her instinctively. "Stay here," he whispered. "Let me handle this." As he descended the stairs, ready to face whatever came next, the tension reached its peak. Would Mia trust him enough to take the leap? Could they overcome the obstacles threatening to tear them apart? The answers lay just beyond the horizon, waiting to unfold in the final chapter of their story. As Ryan stepped out into the chaos of flashing cameras and shouted questions, he felt a surge of determination he hadn't known in years. This wasn't just about protecting Mia. It was about reclaiming control of his life, breaking free from the suffocating expectations that had defined him for so long. "Enough," he barked, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. The reporters froze, startled by the raw intensity in his tone. "You want a story?" he continued, his eyes blazing. "Here it is. I met someone who reminded me what it means to be human. Someone who doesn't care about my money or my title. And if you think I'm going to let your greed and gossip destroy that, you don't know me at all." The room fell, silent, the only sound the faint hum of rain dripping off umbrellas. For once, Ryan didn't feel like a CEO performing for an audience. He felt like himself, unfiltered and unafraid. He turned back toward the stairs, leaving the stunned reporters behind, and made his way back to Mia's apartment. She stood in the doorway, her arms crossed, but her expression soft. "That was something," she said, trying to suppress a smile. Ryan laughed nervously, running a hand through his soaked hair. "Yeah, well, I figured it was time to stop hiding. But the real question is, are you still willing to give this a shot?" Mia hesitated, her mind racing. Everything about their worlds seemed impossibly different. He lived in penthouses. She preferred cozy nooks. He navigated boardrooms. She thrived on quiet streets filled with art and stories. Yet, as she looked at him now, vulnerable, honest, and determined, she realized none of that mattered. What mattered was the connection they shared, the way he made her feel seen and valued without pretense. "On one condition," she said, finally, her voice steady. "No more lies, no more hiding. If we're doing this, it's real. No games." Ryan nodded, relief washing over him. "Deal," he said, his voice full of gratitude. From that moment on, they vowed to face whatever came their way together, refusing to let fear or judgment dictate their choices. Over the following weeks, they worked tirelessly to navigate the storm surrounding them. Ryan leaned on Claire to manage the media fallout, while Mia focused on staying true to herself, despite the constant scrutiny. They found solace in small moments, a quiet dinner at home, a walk through the park, or simply sitting side by side, sketching ideas for Mia's next art project. Slowly but surely, the world began to see them, not as tabloid fodder, but as two people genuinely trying to build something meaningful. Mia's illustrations gained attention online, not because of her association with Ryan, but because of the authenticity and heart behind her work. One piece, titled Rainy Night Connection, depicted their first meeting under the awning, capturing The magic of two strangers finding each other amidst the chaos of life. It resonated deeply with viewers, becoming a symbol of hope and possibility. As for Ryan, he discovered a new perspective on success. He started using his influence to support local artists, funding community projects, and hosting events that celebrated creativity and individuality. His company flourished not because of ruthless ambition, but because of purpose-driven innovation. The fake smiles and empty conversations faded into the background, replaced by genuine connections and mutual respect. Months later, on another rainy evening eerily similar to the night they'd met, Ryan took Mia back to the same street corner where it all began. The food cart was still there, its neon sign glowing softly in the drizzle. "Why are we here?" she asked, raising an eyebrow playfully. Ryan grinned, pulling a small box from his pocket. Inside was a simple silver bracelet, engraved with coordinates, the exact location of their first encounter. "Because this is where it all started," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "And I want to remember it forever. With you." Tears welled up in Mia's eyes as she hugged him tightly, overwhelmed by the beauty of the moment. It wasn't extravagant or flashy, but it was perfect, a reflection of everything they had built together. As they stood there, sharing laughter and stolen kisses under the rain-soaked sky, they knew they had found something rare and precious. A love rooted in honesty, resilience, and the courage to embrace life as it truly was. Their journey hadn't been easy, and challenges would undoubtedly arise in the future, but they faced them head-on, side by side, knowing that their bond was stronger than any obstacle. In the end, it wasn't about wealth or fame. It was about choosing to live authentically, even when the world tried to pull you in the opposite direction. And as they walked away from the food cart hand in hand, disappearing into the bustling city, they left behind a legacy far greater than either could have imagined. Proof that love, in its purest form, has the power to change everything.